Hello, and welcome back to another week of the Self Ruled podcast. So, something a little crazy happened last week, and that is that I completely forgot to upload an episode. It was just one of those weeks, and last Thursday, my energy was super low and I took a nap. So I just completely forgot to upload an episode. So sorry about that. If you were tuning in to listen last week, we missed a week. But definitely not missing this week because I really just wanted to check in and share a few of the thoughts that are running through my mind. So it's going to be a little bit less traditional or structured format this week. This week I am out in California. I just spent the last 2 days on a client site working with a team and really helping them build trust with each other and interpersonal skills, team cohesion, and really understand how they can align better as a team, and then some other priorities that their company has for them. So it was really energy intensive. And so I'm really taking it a little bit easy today before I fly back to Minnesota. And full transparency, I am I am recording this from the bed in my hotel room. I'm just kind of sitting here and relaxing a little bit. I got up this morning and went and had some coffee, and I was just really thinking about what is it that I want to share this week with my people here on the Self Ruled podcast. And I think that what I want to talk about is just the reality of life and the reality of the cyclical nature of human existence. And what I mean by that, or I guess what I've learned about cycles, is that I think a lot of times when things shift, when we find ourselves in the different stage of a cycle or a different season, a lot of times we see it as a problem. And it's funny how it doesn't matter if we've gone through the same cycle 100 times. When we get to that particularly difficult part of the cycle, a lot of times we kind of turn on ourselves and we think something is wrong with us. And these could be cycles of the energy that we have for our goals, for maybe the projects that we're working on, for the different areas of our life that we want to nurture and develop. So energetic cycles, there could be hormonal cycles, cycles in our business. But what I've come to realize is that cycles are truly a part of life. And the more that I've learned how to just embrace the cycle and just be aware, okay, this is where I'm at in this particular cycle, then the more I'm able to navigate the cyclical nature of life, the cyclical nature of my business, of my energy, all of those things that are running simultaneously, the more that I can accept and embrace that that is the way life is ordered, is it's cyclical, then I'm able to handle those tougher parts of cycles with more grace. And I was thinking about this because when for me, when I am working on different projects and I'm really just trying to figure out where I'm going in my business, I have cycles where I feel on top of the world. It's just everything is coming together. I know exactly what actions I want to take, and I am going full steam ahead. I just had a cycle like that for a couple of weeks where I was just pouring every bit of energy into my business and pretty much my business alone. I was still getting a couple workouts in here and there, still seeing friends and family a couple times here and there, but I was kind of in one of those cycles, which I feel was just had to be very focused on just business. But we really do go through these cycles, and sometimes it's cycles where we're really productive and we're really clear and we're really taking action. We know exactly what we're supposed to do. But then sometimes I can feel it when I'm coming out of that cycle, because it's almost like I used up all that was in my reserve, all of that, energy, all of that creativity, all of that just burning drive to get stuff done. But I think sometimes we forget that there's got to be um, other sides to those cycles. There's, just like there's up, there's down. There's always going to be um, that different part, those different ends of the cycle. And if we can embrace it, then we don't have to see it as a negative thing when we are depleted and we have to maybe go into a cycle of rest, a cycle of recovery, maybe a cycle of reflection. And that is something that has been really helpful for me because I will sometimes find myself in those cycles of rest and reflection. And sometimes it's uncomfortable because I might find myself there longer than how long I really want to be there because I think sometimes I can start to feel like, okay, I haven't done enough. I haven't really accomplished much. But sometimes resting and doing nothing is the most productive thing that I personally can do for myself and for my business because it's almost like I've completely cleared everything that I had in me. And now I'm just kind of like letting that energy and tension build back up. And that energy and tension is built back up through rest. And when I say tension, what I mean is it's kind of that starter energy, that fire to start again. And so there really are these cycles. And I'm gonna butcher this, but I was talking to a friend last week about this, and I don't remember where she got it from, but I think this was maybe a Buddhist reference around just some of the cycles that we go through. But she was talking about how there's kind of cycles of like that we will come to cycle of humility where it's almost like something happens that, takes us back to a need for grounding because maybe there's fear or uncertainty or an obstacle on our path or something we don't know what to do or something's not really coming to fruition, something's not really happening. And so it can kind of take us to humility. And I think I would tie like the humility phase to rest because sometimes when we're in those stretches of being humbled by something, being humbled by life, or just feeling some resistance or roadblocks to where we're trying to go, that can be a great time to just park the car. And that can be a great time to just park the car. But a lot of times we try to like force ourselves through that, force through the resistance, force through. And sometimes that's not always the best move because if we don't have that clarity, then we're just really spending a lot of energy without a clear direction or clear alignment. So, I think I was telling my friend I kind of came out of one of those phases. There was a little bit of a humility phase for me where there were just certain things that I was wanting to make happen and they weren't happening. And so I parked my car a little bit there. But the funny thing about when you do that and you kind of give in, you surrender to that phase in the cycle and just get back in touch with yourself and pour some energy back into yourself is that then you kind of get that energy built back up where then there becomes that tension to act again. And so that is where, I don't remember the stage of the cycle she said, but I would liken it to like planting. You're in like a planting phase because there is that tension that's been built up and now it needs to go somewhere. And so you're out there and you're planting your seeds and you plant all of your seeds and then you maybe go into a phase of nurturing those and eventually you're able to harvest. And I think after harvest sometimes we go back into maybe that rest phase or that humility phase, whatever you want to call it, a winter in our lives where maybe we're not sure what's next or where we should really be spending our energy. And I know I'm blurring a lot of cycles, but I think my main point here is just, sometimes in life we have to embrace that it will be cyclical. We're not always going to be up. We're not always going to be energetic. We're not always going to feel like we've got everything under control. And I've told people this before. There are times when I feel like I'm on top of the world in my life and my business, and everything is just like, wow, I see all this. I see where I'm going. I see it all coming into fruition. And then there are times where I feel like the most delusional, the most delusional person in the world. But it's almost like we have to accept that there are going to be those ups and downs, and it will always be like that. It's more about how do we navigate those ups and downs in our perspective on ourselves, on our life, on our goals, How do we navigate the ups and downs and the shifts and do it with grace and do it with intention to hold positivity, hold the vision that you have, hold positive energy, but also with the acknowledgement that it is going to be cyclical. You will enter into those phases where it feels unclear, everything feels more challenging. And how do you kind of honor that as a signal to slow down and surrender and rest, and then allow kind of those answers and that direction to come and kind of build. And as that tension builds, you'll have the energy with it, and then you'll be ready to release that and figure out where that needs to go. So it's very abstract, but I I think sometimes we think we have to be consistent every day with the same level of energy, the same level of output, the same level of confidence in ourselves and the direction we're going. But that's just not reality. We're going, and if we didn't have the phases where we were really questioning ourselves or really questioning what we were doing, we wouldn't find clarity again. So it is very much this like cyclical process. And I think from, if you look at it, like I've heard this in different kind of spiritual references, but this idea of like disillusionment. But I think no matter what your beliefs are, we go through phases where we're disillusioned with ourselves, our self-image, our identity. We're disillusioned maybe with our business, our career, maybe even our relationships, just different aspects of our life. But I think just to remember that when we feel that disillusionment, like maybe things aren't living up to expectation, that's not necessarily a sign that something's wrong. This will always be the case. I mean, it just comes back to, we can't have sunshine without rain. We can't have light without dark. So if you want light tomorrow, you have to have darkness tonight. And if we don't have those moments of questioning, confusion, disillusionment, wondering if we're on the right path, wondering if we're doing the right things, wondering if we're in the right relationship, if we didn't have those moments, then there wouldn't be a catalyst for getting back into clarity and alignment. And there wouldn't be a catalyst for perhaps the slowdown and rest and intentionality that would need to happen for us to get that clarity. So it's very much a part of the process, not an obstacle to the process. And I just always love the Marcus Aurelius quote, which I've probably shared before, but the obstacle is the way. And so I always think about this, that when we feel like we're in that phase where there's a lot of obstacles, the obstacles are the way. And sometimes they are really just trying to get us to slow down and take a step back or zoom out a little bit, and sometimes give some time and space so that when we come back to whatever it is that we're working on in our lives, we're able to do it with a fresh perspective. And for me, a lot of times it's with more gratitude. It's with more self-compassion. So that is what came through today, was just wanting to share a little bit about just embracing the cycles. Give yourself grace when you're in a season or a cycle, a stage in the cycle where it just feels tough. That is part of the journey. That is part of the process. And just give yourself grace and give yourself permission to slow down. Give yourself permission to honor where you're at. And that is actually the fastest way to move beyond those uncomfortable phases. The more we find fault with the phase we're in, the more we feel angst and frustration. And the more we kind of like pound our chest, pound the wall, just like feel that tension to move out of a phase. To me, that's usually keeps us there longer. But when we can release and relax into a difficult phase, then our mindset and our ability to shift our energy in that situation is actually what helps us move out of that sooner. So thanks for tuning in this week. I hope something that I shared helps someone if you're navigating a phase like that. And I will look forward to being back with you next week.